Sleeves here with the Senior Pickleball Report, powered by TNC Network. Let's get it going. Today we're going to speak with Dr. Josh Mackey, and he is a physical therapist. We're going to talk all things pickleball and how to keep ourselves out there playing. But first, if you like this content, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out our socials. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Check out the links in the description for discounts on paddles and shoes. And check out our merch page. All right, let's get to that interview with the good doctor. All right. Hey, welcome to the Senior Pickleball Report. Dr. Josh Mackey, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Super excited.
Right on, man. So let's talk about, like we always talk about with people, because obviously this is a very odd time period with all of the hype and enthusiasm, to say the least, around this goofy game with a wiffle ball, pickleball. How did it come into your life?
Yes, for sure. So I, like many, came from a sports background. I was a big football player in high school. Played a lot of table tennis as well. So had kind of that background. So I enjoyed the sport a lot, but wasn't really anything outside of just playing with a couple of friends. But so I started playing pickleball so I was during one of my rotations during school. I was with a family in Illinois, and I was familiar with the game a little bit, but never really played it that much. And they had a group that they played with pretty much every night of the week. During the winter, they had a machine shed that was heated. So it was something to do in the cold winter of Illinois while I was stuck on a clinical rotation. And yeah, so we played pretty much every single night. And then, I mean, with the table tennis background, I was pretty familiar with how the game would work, and I enjoyed it a lot more because of the competition, and then just having more people that were able to play. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started with it. So
how long ago was that?
That would have been probably 3.5, 4 years ago. About.
Yeah. So you're an old timer then when it comes to this game.
I guess, yeah. I mean, they had it when I was back in high school. I think they had it in PE class, but it was the same thing as, they would play badminton. They'd play a little bit of table tennis, but it was just another one of those sports. So it really wasn't quite what it was now, but it was, at least been around. So
right, absolutely, yeah. My wife taught PE, and I remember her sort of bringing it up as I kind of recall back, like probably prior to 2010, in this game that she was playing with the kids. And the reason she was doing it was so much easier for them to play a game than to try and get them to play tennis, or even badminton. The skill, the entry level was lower in pickleball, where they could actually keep the ball in play. They weren't jacking it over a fence. Obviously, the ball's not pressurized as plastic in a wiffle ball, but she thought it was a great sport, really, to kind of get kids moving. And you kind of come in with a little bit of a skill set, at least, and you're not just, chasing a ball because you can't even put it in play. So.
Right. Yeah. And I agree. It's even me being the table tennis person before this, I would say it's even easier than table tennis too.
Oh yeah.
Compared, like you said, with tennis as well. So tennis is probably the most challenging of the three, in my opinion. But yeah, that's what I think, like what you said, it makes anybody be able to play. And so I think that's why it's grown, and that's why it's so popular, is because everybody can play. So
absolutely. And because everybody can play, and there's millions of people running to courts these days, obviously, the older we are, people like me, you generally need to take some precautions and look at your physical capabilities and some warming up. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because being a physical therapist and just knowing the little bit I know about the last year and a half that I've been playing this sport, I've seen plenty of people just, minor injuries, everything from just falling down on the court because they're off balance, to calf strains, to knee pain, tennis elbow, pickleball elbow, whatever you want to call it, shoulder pain, wrist pain, you name it. It seems to be like any sport. If you do it enough, you get dings, and you kind of, you start limping around a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about your work and really what you would like to bring to the sport of pickleball with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I have the physical therapy background, so I have the knowledge of the musculoskeletal system and biomechanics, all that stuff. So me getting involved with the pickleball, I just felt there was like a big gap of the players and then just general knowledge on injuries, proper warm up, precautions that need to be taken. That way they're able to stay on the court. So what I did is I started doing what is considered online coaching. So I coach people from whether it's just a performance standpoint or helping them just get out of pain if that's something that they're struggling with. So
Right.
that's kind of what I wanted to bring to the table is just having someone that specializes specifically with the pickleball people, someone that plays a sport. That way I understand everything that they're doing,
Right.
and then just be able to be that person that if they have questions, if they need training out of an injury, I can be that person to guide them out of it, and then that way everybody can continue playing, and that way
Right.
we're not limited and not stuck watching our friends play all the time.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So you mentioned, a warm up, and as I've gotten older and do activities, I noticed I have to warm up a little more. And so, talk to me about, in our audience, which is a 50+ audience, about what you would consider to be a good warm up, for any sort of play, rec play to tournament play.
Right, for sure. So the big thing that I've seen with the warm-ups is one, if you make it too long, people tend to not want to do it. So
Yeah.
what I did is I condensed it down to like anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes because that's
Right.
enough time to actually get benefit from it. But then also people are going to continue to do it. So I usually break it down into three things. The first section being just focusing on muscle activation through a specific different number of exercises, and then following up that up with what I call reinforcement exercises. So that might be like your squats, your lunges,
Okay.
more functional movements. And then after that, after just a couple minutes of that, I like to go into the more dynamic warm up. So getting the heart rate up, getting the blood pumping. That way we're ready to step on the court and play.
Okay. So does the dynamic part include? Does that part include the paddle and the ball?
So I don't include that. So if because people have their own specific
Sure.
warm up, including the dinking, all of that. My warm up is more for just the musculoskeletal system. So getting their muscles activated, getting their blood flowing. That way, when they step on the court, they're ready to practice their pickleball warm up or whatever routine they do before they actually start playing.
Right. And how about afterwards? Do you recommend a cool down or?
Yeah, I have what I call active recovery. So
Mhm.
what I do is I program a lot of isometrics and muscle activation exercise, and then doing light activities such as walking, just light dinking, things like that,
Yeah.
just to keep the body moving, and that way
Mhm.
they're not completely resting because that
Sure.
actually makes your recovery time even a little bit longer. So
Yeah. What would you recommend? Like, because, for example, I played at a park recently where there were, a bunch of courts, a bunch of people, and you put your paddle in this kind of holder, and you're waiting around, and let's say you're waiting 15, 20 minutes to a half hour between matches, and you don't have access to obviously keep dinking and stuff like that. Give me maybe a couple things you could probably keep doing just to keep the body a little warm, so you don't walk out there and have a quick burst in something, yings.
right, for sure. Yeah. So anytime you're spending extra rest time between matches, I usually recommend just doing small parts of the warm up. So if your body's already pretty warmed up and you just want to keep it at that state, I usually just recommend doing one of the three categories of the warm up that I just talked about, which we can get more specific
Yeah.
as we go along. But doing just a few isometrics, doing just a few of the reinforcements like squats, lunges, things like that, and then even just breaking the dynamic warm up into smaller components just to keep the body moving. And
Right.
then that way you're not, like you said, stepping on the court after not doing anything for 15, 20 minutes. So
Yeah. How much do you stress in your work about talking about hydration?
definitely big thing. Yes. Especially for people like you who are in the Southwest and
Yeah.
where it's hot and dry. So yeah, it's super, super important to be hydrated. Everybody, if your days you're playing and you're sweating more, definitely need to drink a little bit more fluid. But even on the days off, it's super important to try and drink. I usually recommend like half your body weight in ounces of water every single day, just to keep the body flowing. And that way you're performing at your best and decreasing your chances of injury too.
Right, right. Do you talk to people specifically about their game at all?
I kind of shy away from that as
Mhm.
like with the more skill. And I leave that to the people that are, I think, better
Sure.
coaches than me at the specifics with the pickleball. I like just focusing more on injuries, getting people out of pain, and just improving their athletic performance.
Right, right, right on. So talk to me really, what's kind of, if you had to give me an overriding philosophy about staying healthy while participating in a sport like pickleball, give me kind of a summary of what that looks like for you.
Yes, for sure. So I'm a big believer in people doing strength training exercises, even if it's only just a couple times a week. I think that's the number one thing people just skip. They tend to do their after match, pre-match stretches, but it's almost more important to be doing some type of strength work. And that doesn't even mean you have to go to a gym and lift heavy weight. A lot of these exercises can be accomplished with just body weight, using resistance bands, super lightweight. Those types of things are going to keep you strong, and that's in turn is going to prevent you from getting injured, especially as you get older.
Right. So what are your thoughts on things like, I guess these aids that, everybody seems to wear, including myself, something for your elbow to keep your, whether it's, some sort of sleeve, or whether you're wearing something on your wrist or something for your knee under your patella. Talk to me about some of those things and your thoughts
Yes,
about those.
for sure, for sure. Yeah, and I think so. If people are playing in tournaments or they're playing a ton of extra pickleball matches, I don't think those things are bad if they're being used. Like if you're experiencing a lot of pain as you go along in the tournament, well, whatever we can do to keep you going, right? But at the same time, I also see that people can tend to overuse those things. So
Sure.
I do think if people take the approach of building strength, focusing on their mechanics, focusing on moving better, in turn, they're going to they're not going to need those things in the long run. So
Right.
I'm not completely opposed to them. I just think we need to be cautious when it comes to them and try not to overuse them.
Right, right. So even things like, obviously, one of the things I know when somebody just talks to me basically about like something's bothering them, I always look at what they're wearing on their feet, like what they're wearing for shoes. Is that something you consider when you're looking at and evaluating somebody? Like if you'd be amazed what people wear on a pickleball court to play a game where there's a lot of lateral movement. So do you have any thoughts about footwear and how that plays into your health?
Right. Yeah. So my big thing is everybody's feet, everybody's knees, everybody's hips, everybody's different. So when it comes to playing on the court, I usually just recommend wearing shoes that you're comfortable with. And something because sometimes you force people into shoes, you force them into orthotics and things just feel weird. So I usually try to shy away from forcing them into something. I just recommend wearing what's comfortable for you. But at the same time, I do think a lot of like exercises and stuff that I program, I try and recommend people to do in their barefoot. That way that they're strengthening their feet, they're strengthening all the way up the chain. So everybody's different. So that's usually what I recommend. So
right on. And finally, really, let's in this part of the conversation, let's talk about the old standards of icing and elevating and heat and pain relief, what people use for pain relief. Maybe you could touch on some of those things in your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm more along with the lines of what the newer research and stuff is stating is instead of trying to do things as much as icing, I'm a big believer of the active recovery, active exercise when trying to recover from exercises. Or active recovery from injuries. So I'm more on the believer of trying to do light movement as opposed to just like icing and not moving a specific joint that's injured. So I think it's more important to continue to be active and try to limit the amount of rest that you're doing when it comes to like recovering from an injury. You talked about the medications and stuff. Same kind of thing with what you talked about with the elbow, with the wrist sleeves, things like that. I don't think they're necessarily bad. Like if you're using it short term to try and get through a tournament, but like if you're spending months and months on end only relying on medications or something along those lines, I think there's something else you probably should be doing because that's not a long-term solution for pain management, in my opinion. So.
Okay. I know when I talked to you earlier before we went on, we talked a little bit about some of the things I was dealing with, and you mentioned about addressing things that are actually not always in the area that are a concern, but something up further up. Can you talk a little bit about that, and is your philosophy and how you approach somebody?
Right. And yours was a wrist. It was a wrist pain.
Right.
Is that right? Yeah. So wrist pain, tennis elbow, pickleball elbow, whichever term you use. A lot of those injuries can be as a result of some other area of your body failing. So oftentimes when you look at the elbow, for example, where they're experiencing pain, that may also, or it may be a cause of lack of shoulder motion or poor stability in the shoulder joint. So oftentimes when people are injured in a specific area, it's almost better to find what's actually weak or what's actually limiting them and then addressing that. And when that happens, oftentimes pain and injury just goes away because you addressed what was actually causing the problem.
Right. Makes sense. All right, let's shift gears and wind this up a little bit. Talk to me about, you're in this game, you're a physical therapist. Where do you see what you want to do going, and what are you trying to accomplish long-term with your practice and specifically to the game of pickleball?
Yeah. So for me, it's just trying to help as many people as I can right now. I haven't really sat down and, set specific goals. I want to be here, but my goal, I guess, is just to help as many pickleballers from 14, 15, all the way up to 60, 70 years old, and just be that person that people can ask questions and, get out of pain. That way people can continue to play and be active. Since we see so many people as they age, they stop doing things. And I think pickleball is a good way for people to continue to be active, continue to be competitive. And so it's going to be easiest to keep doing those things when you're not experiencing pain.
Right. Well, I appreciate your time, Josh. Tell us where folks can find you, on whether you have a website or social media, or how folks can get in contact with you if they need to.
Yeah, and we can probably put a link in the description too.
Absolutely.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. dr.joshmackey is my username, but we can link that. I also have a YouTube channel, Facebook group for exercises, things like that. So Excellent. If people ever have questions, they can always reach out.
Right on. And you can find all those things in the links in the description. Hey, thanks for your time, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed our interview with Dr. Josh Mackey. Good way to stay healthy. Follow his videos. Follow him on Instagram. All these links are in the description. And hey, let's pickle. New paddle company, Pickle, PCKL. Great paddle line, great price points. Anything you want, from starter paddle to intermediate to a pro series high level paddle. Check them out. Get 15% off using my discount code. Pickle. It's the future.